It's been over 6 months since Drew McIntyre won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 36. That's over 200 days. So I want to ask you both, Adam and Josh, what grade would you give Drew McIntyre's title reign this whole time? I know we are under unique circumstances, unprecedented times with COVID-19 and these empty arena slash Thunderdome shows. So I want to know what you guys think about his title reign, how it compares to previous title reigns to, of the last 50, 60 years. Adam, we'll start off with you. And I do want you to incorporate like kind of whether opponents, whether it's the arena, whether it's, maybe social media. What grade would you give his title reign so far?
So, just on the predication of what I've been presented on mainstream WWE TV, that's the kind of WWE exclusive, WWE network exclusive docs notwithstanding, I will say it's a C. And the reason why I say is because it's not so much Drew. I don't think it's Drew's fault at all. It's more of the fact the lack of competition. And the reason why I say lack of competition is the people that he's faced, right? I mean, we go Brock Lesnar. That to me is the biggest in terms of star value, the biggest opposition that he's done, right? And you can't count this. You have to count that on the flip side of his title reign. He wasn't champion when he faced Brock Lesnar. That was the person he faced to basically become champion, right? So Randy Orton, nah. Seth Rollins, kind of. It's just I think Drew's title reign is hampered in my eyes, no one else's, by kind of the 50-50 booking. And there aren't too many stars in terms of like the pop culture lexicon. I think I have one in terms of like his opponents that he's faced. Like I have a Seth Rollins t-shirt. I'm not the biggest fan. I love this incarnation of Seth Rollins as the Monday Night Messiah and what have you, but it's not a WWE t-shirt. It's a Black Craft Wrestling t-shirt, and he's kind of the precursor of what ended up becoming the Monday Night Messiah. But I think he's hindered because, okay, let's say if you have him face like Nakamura or AJ Styles or Strowman. I mean, how many of those guys outside of Strowman are kind of pushed to the moon and given like the total faith in the company to do what they do? I think Drew is one of them, and I think if there was more heels and faces and people got behind particular characters, I think Drew's work would be a little bit higher on my rating because I think I have grown to like Drew, and especially it's because of the WWE network kind of exclusives that they had on him. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. And that made me a fan. But his day-to-day presentation on either Raw or SmackDown and what have you, it hasn't really I guess enhanced my liking of Drew. It's this like the B-side stuff, the rarities.
I want you to elaborate a little bit on that, what you just said, 50-50 booking, because from what I'm seeing on TV, and maybe you have a completely different point of view, is I'm seeing Drew kind of dominate every week. He's not losing every other week like Rey Mysterio did.
He's been pinned once in the last year.
Yeah, he's not, and he's main evented properly, unlike a CM Punk who was clearly not even the number one guy when he was WWE champion for 434 days until he was facing against somebody like a John Cena. So I want you to kind of explain a little bit what you mean by that 50-50 booking, because maybe I can speak with Josh as well, where I think he's been looking pretty strong ever since, even before WrestleMania, going back to Royal Rumble.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the best, I mean, maybe this is outdated because it was pre his WWE title reign, but I think his biggest post NXT, post coming back to the WWE match and feud, in terms of storyline and the match quality, was against Ziggler. That kind of what cage match that he had against Ziggler. I thought it was great. I watched it back in preparation for that. But in terms of, yes, he hasn't been pinned. That is absolutely true, but one time, right? But again, it's looking dominant. It's like picking apart Goldberg's, streak, right? I mean, the first person in the streak was Hugh Morris.
Hugh Morris. Right? And there were a lot of Jerry Flynn's. There were a lot of Mings and Barbarians in there too. So if I had a point system, I would give you points for that.
Right. So That's what I'm saying. Is it's like, to me, in this day and age, does Randy Orton feel important? Not to me. Now, I am a completely different wrestling fan than most people. I mean, Big Show, it didn't feel as important because, I mean, he made an appearance and he had the match with Drew post his, kind of failed and fledgling appearance on Netflix with the show, right? So it was more like, show, what are you doing? We're taping in Florida. You live in Tampa. Come on down, right? You're not doing anything. It didn't feel important, and Big Show hasn't been booked that way. Randy Orton, again, I'm not the biggest Randy Orton fan of this kind of Viper incarnation. So be that as it may, but I just think that if he had, whether it be character wise or other wrestler types that were like, that enhanced him. Hogan had Iron Sheik and, King Kong Bundy and Andre and all of that. There's not that for Drew, and not to say that other champions haven't, because I mean, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Bret the Hitman Hart, and his first title reign was kind of bumskis. It wasn't until the second, did he finally get his win, so a win back. So, with that all being said, I just think it's not so much Drew, because I think Drew in this incarnation, I've never liked Drew more than I do right now. I just think the wins would mean something. The fact that he hasn't been pinned in, since he won the title at Mania, if he had basically had faced somebody and beat somebody with stock as equal or better than him, because to be the man, you got to beat the man, right?
What do you think, Josh?
Well, I just let Adam go for around 6 minutes or so, because I appreciate Adam. I consider Adam a friend. He's a good guy. But I don't know if I've ever disagreed with anyone more in any of these debates than I'm about to right now. Drew McIntyre, at this point, to me, I'd give an A-. And here's why I'm giving that grade. When was the last time? Now, I'm sure the response would be, because there are no live crowds. But when was the last time that we had a babyface champion be treated by fans as a babyface for this long without them wanting someone else to win the title?
You think they turned on Kofi?
Other than Kofi. Really,
Okay.
there was Kofi.
Mm-hmm.
There was Kofi, and then they were pissed at the premiere SmackDown. Mm-hmm. But as far as, they turned on Seth, they turned on Roman, they turned on, they even kind of, in a way, some turned on Braun. So, it's really, other than Kofi, who was the SmackDown one, on Monday Night Raw, we haven't had this in quite some time. McIntyre wins the title, beats Lesnar. I don't remember the exact order of the feud, so bear with me. He has to feud with Ziggler, which, Adam, you mentioned, which, while a lot of people are like, oh, well, Ziggler's going to lose, well, there was a story of, well, I brought you in, I'm going to take you out. So that helped it. And it made Ziggler look legit, made McIntyre look legit. Hey, you brought me in, but I showed that I could stand on my own. Then you have Lashley, who's like, I never really got the title shot, and just a muscle-bound freak. Took care of it. He had Seth Rollins, the Monday Night Messiah, arguably one of the top heels in the company right now. He took care of it. Big Show right after Brock Lesnar. He took care of it. Randy Orton, the feud's probably gone a little too long. And my only reason I'm docking it from an A to an A- is because of that ambulance match. Because when you had 4 other guys kind of go in and help Randy in a way, or help Drew, excuse me, that was just like, okay, I don't know how I feel about that. He beat Randy with a roll-up. Then it was the other help. So it makes sense that they're going to this payoff in Hell in a Cell. But that's the only thing that might have knocked it a little bit for me from the A, because I feel if there were crowds, they're still going to be cheering. They're still going to be going nuts when McIntyre shows up, by the way they booked him, by the type of opponents they've set him up with, by the WWE 24 Chronicle, the build-up social media videos they've done for him. Drew has become the epitome of what they would want a good guy WWE champion to be. I just started hearing his voice on some like action figure commercial the other day, and which is crazy because he's never been known for his talking just because of his accent. So the fact that they're even doing that stuff with him now, he's doing all different Zoom appearances with people. He is the guy, and he's done as good a job as you can, given the bizarre circumstances and some of the horrible storylines that have been around the shows, as you could do. So Drew, to me, is an A-, and if it weren't for that ambulance match, he'd probably be just a solid A.
I will say, in Drew's defense, it's not like he asked for that help.
Correct, but if a few months ago Big Show came out after his match with Brock Lesnar and be like, I want to take the title, and now they're just buddy-buddy with no explanation, and Big Show's coming out to help him, don't know about that.
I gotta ask you, Adam, because you gave Drew McIntyre a C. Who would be an A or like a B plus for you?
I think Seth. He's kind of been a sniveling kind of a chicken crap heel, right? So,
and just to be clear, you're talking about Seth Rollins after he cashed in at Mania 31, right?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I mean, in terms of the whole kind of Shield dynamic, I thought Ambrose was, or now Moxley, I thought that was the star. I 100%. I wasn't a fan of Seth. This is not like a indie whatever. Like, I was familiar with Moxley with CZW and Jersey All Pro and what have you. That was some of the first streaming pre-YouTube that I got was Jersey All Pro Wrestling, right? So I was familiar with Moxley. I saw him, and the stuff that he was doing in NXT. Or it might have even still been FCW with, Mick Foley and William Regal. That should have been Regal's last run with Moxley or Demon and Ambrose, right? So I never really saw a star in Seth until this Monday Night Messiah gimmick, and that's it. So I would say Seth for sure. I mean, MVP has done remarkable work since he's come back. He's boosted not just himself in his own kind of echelon and appearance, but I mean, three others. I mean, Lashley and Shelton, who are notoriously not known for their talking, just their in-ring ability, right? And then they brought Seth. I mean, if the Cedric Alexander type deal, it was like, oh, you think I could just, help too along the way? Here, let me get Seth in here. Then they were probably, travel buddies and everything like that anyway. So I just think that MVP, I mean, he's doing the work for like three non-talkers, including himself. I think he's done.
But essentially, who would you rank? Like, who's an A when it comes to their title reigns? I think you mentioned Seth Rollins as far as their title reigns.
So I'm gonna go. I mean, obviously, I don't like to because I'm not a fan, but this would be kind of contrary into history. You got to add Hogan in terms of that, right? You have to. I would say the second title reign of Brett. I would say. Gosh, I mean, Kofi, it was great. The build up towards the top, but once we had that kind of like he did it, I felt like the way that he was portrayed, and I don't know if it was the WWE's volition, because obviously we knew that was supposed to be Ali's spot. But the fact that he didn't do anything too much different in terms of presentation from the New Day, he kind of kept the same gimmick all throughout, and the title didn't change him. I'm just like, once we got to like, Kofi's champ, I almost immediately, I mean, it was the whatever Monday Night Raw right after he won that I was like, oh, okay, this is what it was. And even, when he won the title and they were kind of, they had his kids in the ring, he looked demure. This should be, I mean, the moment that he has been working for his entire career, that's the reason why he is away from his wife and kids, this whole time. This was supposed to be kind of, taking back what he should have gotten literally 10 years before, in terms of title reign and prestige. And he was just like, that was the feeling that I got from Kofi and his mannerism. So, I would say
Yeah, those are pretty good choices overall.
Yeah.
I know neither of you mentioned, and I do agree with this fact. Neither of you mentioned, because I feel like if you go a lot of the forums, if maybe I asked two different people, they would say maybe they would maybe knock a few grades down, or maybe a couple pluses or minuses down because of the no crowd thing. But neither of you guys mentioned that. Why?
I did. I mentioned the crowd.
No. But I'm saying like you went from A to A minus because of the ambulance match. You didn't knock him down a notch because of the crowd.
But because the way that he's been booked, this is the type of situation where the crowd would continue to be cheering him, and they wouldn't have started deterring wanting another champ. Because if it was going to do that, then I would have lowered it even more.
Mm-hmm.
But the way he's been booked with his opponents makes the crowd still positively involved in him, which
Mm-hmm.
makes me positively involved with him. So that's why he was getting that grade. I mean, you're talking about, like the crowd thing. You got to, go back and look at, someone like CM Punk, for example, who had such a long, at the time, historic reign, started as a babyface and started dwindling a little bit, but thankfully they were smart enough to flip the switch to then make people want him to lose. So they kept the crowd involved in it. But so many times we've seen different Cena reigns with different Roman reigns up to this current one. Even Seth Rollins, when he was feuding, especially with Bray, at a year or so ago, the crowd was cheering. We're cheering. We're still kind of cheering. We're not doing much more cheering. Can he lose the title already? Okay, we want to root for this guy. I don't care if it's Jinder Mahal. We're rooting for this guy now. It's just like one of those things, and we don't have that, at least as of yet. Thankfully, we don't have that with Drew McIntyre. And with this feud with Randy Orton, whether he wins or loses at Hell in a Cell, I feel like the positivity, he could still ride that positivity at least until the end of the year, if not even farther than that. Because then really the question is, if he were to beat Randy, who on the Raw roster really right now would be besides maybe AJ Styles, but based on on the draft switch, who is there really that could make a legitimate feud that people would want to cheer for to win the title?
No, I agree 100%. I just think that I don't think the crowd, by not having them there versus having them there, I don't think that makes a difference in terms of Drew's ranking. Because again, lest we forget, the attendance for WWE live events, whether it be like tapings or live events, they were kind of going down to the doldrums anyway. So with that all being said, I don't think it factors into kind of Drew's presentation or what have you. I think he's great, but I don't think Randy Orton, this right here going into Hell in a Cell, is indicative of the kind of level of competition that Drew has, right? And he's making chicken salad out of chicken crap, but it isn't those. It isn't the Hogan Monster Factory. It isn't what Reigns went up against. It wasn't, what Lesnar went up against. So that's why I ranked him so low. But I don't think it's solely because of Drew. I think it's just because of his opposition.
All very valid points. I want to know, anybody out there, what grade do you give Drew McIntyre's reign so far? A, B, C, D, B minus, B plus, A minus. What do you want to? I want to know what you guys think. But in the meantime, where can people find you guys on social media?
According to Woods, across the board: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I do believe I even have a Snapchat. So there's that.
At Josh_Tariff on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.com/Josh Tariff. Check out season 1 of Josh Talks. All the episodes up there now. Season 2 coming probably late this year, early next year. And I'm on Cameo. So if you want, that's right, Adam. You could book me on Cameo if you want, because my favorite thing to do is settle people's debates with wrestling. If you have a wrestling query that you want someone to settle a debate on, make a bet with your friend, send it to me. Maybe you'll win, maybe you'll lose. Who knows? But I'm a Cameo.
Sold.
Do that.
Sold. Take my money.
Hey, it's Christy Olson. If you like this video as much as I did, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends so they can join in the wrestling chatter too. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow the show on Twitter at TW Chatter. See you next time.